It has also proved that entertainment is a basic right, because all of us, when we were snuggling in our houses, not being able to go out, one of the things that kept us going was entertainment, and the transformation that happened there that enabled us to still view entertainment through our phones, through our tablets. We yearned for going to the movie house, but we could still see the movies. We yearned the human interaction, but entertainment was still there. So technology has disrupted this sector, and it is evolving, and we need to understand that evolution. So the future is clearly digital and mobile, even for this sector. But we are also seeing that through that, everyone is trying to respond and attract the young people. So while it is important to respond and attract young people, because young people are the future, what then is the role of young people in advancing the transformation in this sector, but also in society as a whole? Some of the things that we are seeing is that this digital technology is enabling the emergence, as I said, of locally focused industry led by the youth. We see this everywhere, but we want to see more of it. We want the doors to be opened for more of our young people. We want to see a growing local industry driven by local content, influenced and led by African youth, telling African stories the African way. Whether it's music, poetry, storytelling, film, dance, television, gaming, whatever it is, we want it Africanized. We want it African culturized. I'm making up English words as well. Right. So, gone are the days. We don't want to be copycats and rely on stories and narratives told elsewhere. We want our own stories. We want our own culture. We want to dance to our own African music that speaks to us, that touches our hearts, that touches our soul. And it is already happening. It is so happening that, in fact, it's making waves even internationally. The Amapianos played internationally. Where does it come from? In Gauteng. But where in Gauteng? Not even in Sandton. In the townships. That's what we want to see. If someone was to play a piano, Amapiano music, I can bet you these young people will give you a dance like no other. And it's an African dance. And as they dance, you will feel it. It will touch your soul. That is what we want to see. So the youth in this space and how we advance our young people is very critical. And that is why we are proud to be the partner of this conference, but also of the entire space as GCRA. So I'm going to ask you a question. Program director, you said there's going to be questions. Okay. After I'm done. Yes. So we've come a long way. So do we know an African who won an Emmy Award this year and where they are from? I have a question. I don't want an answer. It's a question that the program director will deal with. So We know of Trevor Noah hosting a traditionally American show, and he took everyone by storm and made it African. And some of our stories were even told in that platform. So I can go on and on. There are possibilities, there are opportunities. How do we ensure that we support and grow this sector? Support our young people to succeed in the various segments of this industry and support each other to succeed. Those who have come before us, please share your ideas, mentor the young ones, and support them. It's not going to be easy, but it can be done. We must make sure that government as well creates an enabling environment, but also offer support to everyone in this industry. We should not have situations like we've been having where our talented die poor. We must deal with that. But to deal with that, we must also ensure that we expose everyone to the various segments of career options in this industry so that even the insurance industry can understand the dynamics of this industry and support the artists in this industry. We must help our young people to explore the various options in this industry. Advertising is a big part of this industry. But where are the Africans in advertising? Who will create advertising content that my young girl who is running around here can relate to? Not just be politically correct, but be culturally correct as well. Motivate and influence a young Black person through advertising. So our young people must see themselves and resonate with what is being advertised in these products. It can't just be safe, makes the white whiter, the colors color, more colorful. You know the advert. So we are the only ones who can transform this sector, and using the rapid evolution that is brought by technology and the disruption that is brought by technology. Let's create a perfect opportunity for all of us to seize this moment and bring about the desperately needed transformation in this industry. Let's tell the African stories. Newspapers is part of this industry. It cannot be that when they talk about a Black person in the media, they pull out your worst picture and put it up there. That's an insult. We need to change that. And we are the only ones who can change that because we are beautiful. Whether I have a big nose or a small nose, I'm beautiful. Don't make fun of me. And it's our media that is doing that. That is why we need this transformation in this sector. But we have to bring in gender and disability as well. Let the women tell the story. Let the people with disabilities tell the story, not someone on our behalf. So we are happy to partner with See Africa in this conference. Learners from the various schools take this opportunity and learn. The talent that we possess in these young people is humbling. But without support and nurturing, it will go to waste and it will be a loss for all of us. So with the impressive lineup of speakers, I have no doubt that today you will learn, and this is one of the days that you will not forget in your life. And all of us here will learn from each other, share notes and experiences. Collaborations are key, but so is mentoring and support. So consider mentoring someone, Sisi. Take one young person and mentor them. It will go a long way. All of you, I'm challenging you, those who will be speaking here. If you want a young person to mentor, come to me. I will give you a young person. Take one young person, mentor them, handhold them. It's the only way that will grow and transform this sector. This is an exciting opportunity. So let's network, share information, help each other, and grow together. Let's share the light and lighten the lives of others. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Miss Percy Moleke. She's been dropping gems, right? Where's the applause? Thank you so much to Miss Percy Moleke, Gauteng City Regional, for the support. Now, I just wanted to ask if anybody has some questions that you would like to pose over to Miss Percy Moleke. Please put your hands up. As you maybe craft the question that you might have in mind, what a powerful keynote speech. For me, two things stood out. So first, there are possibilities that we can turn into opportunity. That's a very powerful statement. And then the second thing, let the disabled, let the women, let the creatives tell their own story. That is so powerful because I always say there's problems everywhere. There are issues that can be, solved or things to do. There's a lot of work to be done, but where do we start? We have to start with ourselves. So you have to ask yourself in whatever capacity you're in, whatever age, what change am I making? What story am I telling? If I'm given an opportunity tomorrow, what will I do with it? So thank you so much for your words, Miss Moleke. Any questions in the building? Anyone has? There's a question right here at the front. Let me get you a microphone. Can we get a microphone for him, please? Here, just at the front. Here, at the front. Yes, just introduce yourself, where you're from, what you do, and then pose over your question.
1, 2, yeah. Greetings to everybody. My name is Tando, but they call me Chunzarise, Mr. International Kupiza. I run a media company called Tandel Media, which is my unborn child's name, So yeah, shout outs. The question that I have for you, ma'am, is how can like the Gauteng department uplift like the skills of people who are not educated, because when you're in the townships, a lot of people are not educated, but they're hustlers, And I think there should be more programs for how to run a business, how to form partnerships, how to how to even mentor, because a lot of we have a lot of street entrepreneurs that are really making money and do not know where to invest it in. And you find a guy like me that has a company, and I'm working with different artists, different social media, TikTok influencers, that are doing big numbers and changing the world and the culture as we see it. So how do you teach guys like us also to form great partnerships and maintain relationships?
Peter, should Percy come to the front so that those who are watching on the camera are able to see your response? Sorry, I will just call you back up to respond to that question, so we make sure everybody watching from across the continent is able to get that response.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Is it on? Okay. Thanks for that question. Very important. And that's one of the reasons why we are here. But this is an event. But what we are doing is not an event. And we've got programs, we have got partners who are willing to also bring some of these programs to our young people. We want to produce millionaires and billionaires. But for us to be able to do that, we have to give you the support and the tools. Don't make money and go splash it. So basic finance, when you make 100,000, your first 100,000, what do you do? Don't go buy a car. Yeah? Right? So, but these are the tools that we want to bring to our young people. We will convene you again. So this is an event, as I said, but what we do is a program. We do a program where we want to introduce every young person to basic principles of entrepreneurship, so that you understand when you, whatever it is that you're doing, it's a business. How do you build your brand? And there are people who do these things. They can come and help you. So we will have, in fact, we already have some of these programs. Watch the space. We are going to bring you back in, but for an empowerment program, you and some of the other young people. And we go region by region as well. So we try and come to where you are, to ensure that we've got these workshops and bring the people who have made it, because sometimes training is one thing, bringing a person who have made it. So come and share your own experiences with others, so that we all grow together. So that's one of the things that we are trying, and that's why we are a key partner as well in this, as a sector, not just C conference, but looking at the sector as a whole. We had a bit of a discussion with Peter, some weeks ago. We are going to, one of the things that we're going to start with is the writers. So because we've got some sponsors, so we've got a program called the Al Kapulen Young Writers Program. And we want writers. We want young writers. Tell your story. Long story, short story, poetry. And we'll bring you those workshops. But it's more than that. It's a big industry, right? So we're trying our best. But we also want to bring other government departments as well, not just us, to support as many young people as is possible.
Do we have another question? Yes, go ahead.
Sanbanani, my name is Kanyesa, and I am the founder of Chemetopia, which is a city building game. But my question today goes to GCRA, because when I saw GCRA, I understood that it's a bursary opportunity. And as a creative, I'm excited to know about the STEM big ups to our government giving this acknowledgement. How do we provide academical support to the less privileged to access university and schools that empower creatives? Meaning, right? So we have bursary opportunities for people that want to do engineering. But then if I'm in a school that doesn't empower my creative mind, what is the chance of me accessing university with the right APS and the right subject choices? I think that was one of my disadvantages as a creative, sitting in a class and not being accommodated. Thank you.
Very important. Young people, you've heard that, right? So yes, GCRA is well known for its bursary program, but we do more than that. In fact, we do bursaries, in a way, bursaries in many areas. Most famous that we've been cleaning up and sorting out is the bursaries for the top 3. So if you're a top 3 in your no-fee paying school, you are entitled to the bursary, irrespective of which area of study, right? But we also fund others as well. So one of the things that we are doing now is we are getting more partners, because our funding is limited. We are getting more partners to come and help us fund other areas. We've just had a discussion with the SANLAB. It's the South African Languages Board. Right? We are going to recognize the young people who are top achievers in the languages, because we want to move away from this only recognition of maths and science, right? We are partnering with the Lilies Farm, you know the Lilies Farm. We are recognizing young people who are performers in history. right? The schools of arts, I was just told now that it looks like some of them don't even know of the bursary, but we do fund them. We do fund them. You can go do what you want, music, whatever it is that you want to do, either at a TVET college or at a university. So it's work in progress. Remember, for all of us as well, it's a light bulb moment, so to speak. The recognition of A in the STEM, which is now the STEAM, is a step in the right direction, because we are now saying we are also prioritizing the arts. And how do we support the people in the arts better? That's the work that we are doing, some of the work that we are doing. So we'll get there. But also importantly is, and we will bring some of these young people, and yourselves will bring you to the events that we convene for the learners in the schools, because the issue of subject choice is also important. But also, if I want to be in this industry, what are my options? What are my possibilities? And I like the fact that you've got companies. I'm very excited to see young people with companies. One of them sitting next to you there is wondering, how do I get to that space as well? How do I open my company? They don't know. So come and talk to them. So career guidance is one of the things that we do, and that's why they're here. Okay.
Thank you. Do we have any other question? I think we move forward, and for as long as Miss Percy is here, I think if you would like to ask her anything, she's very approachable. You would always just move over to her to ask the question. Thank you so much. A round of applause for Miss Percy Moleke and the work they're doing. Yes. So it's getting interesting, more interesting, right? Yeah. Way more interesting conversations are coming your way. We have amazing speakers, from all over the continent. So it's going to be a great day. Next, I would like to introduce our next keynote speaker, Nota, who is somebody who's recognized in the industry. Nota will also give a keynote address this morning. Known on social media as La Vida Nota and known by many as the authority. We'd like to know why it is the authority. Why the authority? And Nota will be taking questions also at the end of his session. So please type in the comment section online, and for those in the audience, be ready to flag down our stage manager as soon as the address is over. We are so happy to have you here, Nota. Welcome to CR Africa Academy. Round of applause.
Thank you. It's always been one of my dreams to be in the same room as Anioko PR. I've been an admirer of her work on the continent for many, many years. I don't know if I'll need this extra microphone. Thank you very much, guys, for coming here. I'd like to speak to you about what you're getting yourselves into. And I'm glad that we've got a lot of high school pupils that are in here. I heard a question earlier about someone who wanted to do tertiary studies. Well, let me tell you about tertiary studies. I'm a 3-time dropout in varsity. I went to school not too far from here, up the road, at Metropolitan Raucor, which is a school for the previously disadvantaged, but children with high aptitude as well. So I don't know if you guys know where Raucor is in Brixton, Crosby, or if you know where Brixton is on this side of town. Do you guys didn't know? You guys in the school uniform, are you able to respond? Are you able to vocalize? Can I hear you guys say yes, no? You don't know where Brixton is. It's right up the road on the other side of the train tracks, just past Mayfair. So that's where I went to school, in Brixton. I'm going to be talking to you about management. It's not something I do, but it's something I know how to get done. And when it comes to management of talent, that is the backbone of the industry that we are creating in the creative industry. When you are managing talent, whether it be talent of your own, talent of your friends, talent of your colleagues, you need to have three main things that you get down first to ensure that you can secure your financial well-being as a manager of talents, okay? You need to be able to define your roles and responsibilities. You need to be able to define your level of involvement, and you need to know your risk personality. When I started my career in music, I was still in primary school. I got software. Thankfully, back then, software was easy to crack, and we could get free software or steal unlicensed software so we could start making music. So in 2002, that was a long time ago, very long time ago, I got EJ software. I don't know if any of you guys know EJ. Oh, you know EJ, yes. The oldies know EJ. That was like the predecessor for us of Fruity Loops. And with EJ software, you could make samples or take samples of music, arrange them, and create songs. So that taught me how to produce music and to arrange it. And then from there, I started writing lyrics to the songs and making my own songs. And then with my friends in high school, we started our own little rap group. It was because of the high school that I went to on the other side of the train tracks that I realized that where I come from, where there are no trains to get you there, unfortunately, is the more privileged side of Gauteng. So I grew up in Fourways. I had to take 3 taxis back from Langlaagte station to Bree, from Bree taxi rank to Randburg taxi rank, and from Randburg taxi rank to Bridgetown. And then I'd walk from Bridgetown to my home in Blobersrand on Dromedaris Avenue. If you guys know Dromedaris, Rooipia, Jan van Riebeck, and the ships that brought the Dutch settlers to our shores. So part of growing up in that environment, I learned about our country's history and its makeup intrinsically. And I realized that I needed to define my role within the creative space. Ooh, I don't know how this thing, okay, I need to go through all my slides. Sorry, guys. I need to go to get to the beginning because technology, my nephew is not here to help me through this. Yes. I had to define my roles and responsibilities within our rap crew. And I decided that I would become the Puff Daddy or the P. Diddy. Do you guys know who P. Diddy is? Yes, he's a famous record executive. So I was going to manage my whole crew of high school rappers, you know, and managing them was pretty easy, you know. We just had to get a bus to Gandhi Square, where we'd go to rap ciphers and battle, and then I'd make sure that we're in order. Our best rapper, second last, our weakest rapper first, you know. And our school always came out tops within those rap battles. Ooh, sorry, my slides keep disappearing from me. Our school always came out tops within those rap battles. And I learned the skills of moving around with rappers and what the business was about. I also got to define my level of involvement. At that point in time, I realized that although I was a talented writer, my language skills were lacking. I didn't have the language of the streets because of where I grew up. I'm more proficient in English. I'm more fluent in English. That's the language that I'm comfortable in. But if you want to relate with as many South Africans as possible, you need to be able to be multilingual, which is something that I lacked. So I knew that I could never be the rapper. I can't rap in Zulu as well as a Questa, can't rap in Ndebele as well as a Kid X. I cannot rap in isiXhosa as well as a younger chief. So I was limited and I had to limit my role. So I knew what my involvement would be from high school already. And then I also knew that I loved taking chances. I love adventures. So I knew my risk personality. So taking an adventure all the way from the seclusion of suburbia in Fourways to the townships of South Africa, like Katlehong. I don't know if you guys know K1. Do you know K1? Yeah, it was only Katlehong until we made K1 famous, like world renowned. You know, I took an adventure down to K1 to immerse myself in the rap culture. K1 is where South African hip hop as we know it, in its vernacular, was formed by groups called Too Black, Too Strong and Karamo. Ever heard of them? Someone in this room has heard of them. Yeah, it predates all of you. This is in 1987 and 88, before I was born, myself. And I thought to myself, because this township seems to have an affinity to hip hop like no other township, the township that I was born in is Soweto. And in Soweto, we love house music and dancing slow. So we don't like boom that much, right? I knew that this was the one place where we could actually create a real rap culture. All the kids that were coming back from school were listening to hip hop on their speakers, on their phones, in their headphones. You know, they were sagging their pants. I don't know if you guys are allowed to sag your pants in your school uniform, but you know, that's what was happening in K1. So I knew that this was home. More like Four Ways, because in Four Ways, everybody loved rap. We were exposed to BET, you know, at an early age. We had the good fortune of having satellite television, and we were exposed to the latest hip hop music videos at a very early age. So we wanted to emulate what we saw in the States. In Katlehong, I got to see it done South African style. And that's when I knew that, you know, I could take a big risk, very big risk, and bet my entire life and livelihood, you know, on creating household names out of the streets of Katlehong, which is something I've had the good fortune of being able to do. Now, the difference between myself and many other people that come from the background that I come from is that I got to learn the business and I got to study it. Fortunately for me, my mother was studying marketing not too far from here at IMM. It's next to AFDA, if you guys know AFDA. Some creatives also go there. They also teach songwriting. And I got to read through all her IMM books, just recreationally, you know. And because of those marketing books, I was able to put together proposals, presentations, understand how brands work, understand brand contact management, you know, understand that today I'm wearing For You, By You, which is FUBU, an original hip hop brand, right? And I'm wearing a t-shirt that honors Muhammad Ali, you know, one of the greatest rappers of all time. If you guys know Muhammad Ali, every time before he got into a boxing match, he started jabbing at his opponent with raps and bobs and bars and rhymes. And if any of you are going to study psychology, you'd know that people are more prone to believing what you say if you put it in a rhyme. That's psychology. And that was the psychology that Muhammad Ali brought to the sport. That was the swagger and style that he brought to the sport, the rap style, before the music. So I was able to learn about the business and also able to learn about what it takes to make money within this business and what it takes to make money as a manager within this business so that you can manage talent and that you're not stealing from them because you need something to eat. So I got professional legal counsel, you know, an entertainment lawyer. Luckily for me, my big cousin was a rapper already, Specs. And he got me in contact with entertainment lawyers while I was still a teenager, who helped me get my business affairs in order. And I was able to then define, yes. Okay, cool. Yes. Objectives for the team that I was working on and make sure that they were measurable. Simple objectives like we're going to record 5 songs a week. Simple objective. Why? Because we want to practice recording. We want to make sure that when you get into studio or anywhere you get into studio, you know how to work with time, you know how to manage your time, You know, you're not getting into studio listening to a beat, and then you don't have a verse, and then you don't have confidence, and then we have to send the track back, and then someone has to call you, oh, when are you going to deliver that verse? Every rapper I worked with, the goal was, when I get you into studio with anybody, number one, you're going to have a killer verse, so you're going to kill them, right? And number two, you're going to have it in time, within that studio session. Not a day later, not a week later, not a month later, you know, right there and then, on the spot. Those were the systems that I was putting in place, you know, to ensure that, you know, my team had certain measurable goals to work with. The first project that I got to start and finish as a producer and create a system for was Questa Special Request. That was an assignment I was given at Bada Bing Entertainment while I was an intern. And I got to draw the recording schedule up. I got to draw up the release schedule. I got to then measure our success after we had recorded and released the album. Fortunately for us, it got nominated at the South African Music Awards for Best Rap Album, which we lost to Amu, the principal, a legend. So we'll take that L. And Best Newcomer, which we lost to the best-selling album that year by Lockenville, Sun in My Pocket. Remember that. That was back in 2011. And then also, we needed to be able to have big dreams, like big dreams, like big dreams, big dreams. That night when we lost at the Summers, it was the night Professor won. He won 3 Summers. And we got to perform at one of the after parties, and Professor then invited us up to the winners VIP circle, or the winners circle. And inside that winners circle, he basically prophesied. He said, you know what, Questa, one day you're going to win all these awards. You're going to set a record for the most wins of Summers. So don't worry that you lost tonight. Come sit here in the winners circle and get used to being a winner. Right? That was probably the most improbable thing that could happen. And I thought, like, really, you don't need to console us and lie to us like that. You know, you're a legend, and just having us in your presence is enough. But that is exactly, you know, what we went for. We went for breaking that record. And we did everything that we could to do that, you know? And we also took the risk of failing and accepting defeat, which would have been calamatic because, as I told you, I bet my entire livelihood and I bet my entire life on this being successful. I moved on to 4. The reason why we had such hairy, audacious goals was because we wanted to build a career that could stand the test of time. And part of building a career that will stand the test of time is you have to build a legend. The legend is that, AKA, is the greatest, the multi-talented, the super mega. You understand? The legend is Zahara is the Afro pop superstar. You know, the girl with the golden voice that plays the guitar, that plucks at your heartstrings, right? That Questa is the record-breaking, all-time Summer Award winner in hip-hop. He won 6 awards in one night. And because of those hairy, audacious goals, we could then create a legend, an enigma around him, to set him apart, right? And to also give him something to motivate him to keep working on his craft, right? Because if you're wanting to win 6 Summers and you're seeing someone else in a higher position on the charts than you, when you get back into the studio, you know that you need to get ahead of them and get so far ahead that the person who's also competing against the person that's ahead of you can't catch you in your attempt. And as bold as we were patient. I'm telling you about the Summers in 2011, where Professor prophesied that we would sweep and we'd win 6. It took a whole 6 years to achieve that. Yeah, 2017. I remember it like it was yesterday. Okay? So all of those accolades, the enigma, the legend, and creating a lasting career helped me and my team build our brand as managers. You're moving to the next one, right? Cool, sorry. I only sent him this slideshow. So apologies, right? The work has spoken for itself. He needs no introduction. That's what they usually introduce me as. He needs no introduction because the legend has spoken. The work has spoken. The enigma has spoken. Those hairy, audacious goals have been achieved. And now when you enter a room, they precede you. You know? Also, if you're going to be in this business for a long time, right, you're going to have to shake a lot of hands. And you're going to shake more hands than the toes that you step on. Because being successful means that you're going to have to step on some toes. You need to manage that. So maintaining good relationships over time is also essential so that you can be a platform where people's dreams can come true. Because that's exactly what you hold inside your hands. Right? Right? Okay, good. And that's how you create value, build value, and protect your reputation. Because you hold yourself to such high standards and you know that you've got relationships to maintain. You know? You don't need to be scared of being an asshole. Why? Yes, with the pigtails. Why mustn't you be scared? Why mustn't you be scared? No. Her in front of you. Why mustn't you be scared of being an asshole? Because your reputation precedes you. Do you understand? Your reputation precedes you. It's not about your personality. It's about your reputation. And you protect that with your life because your livelihood depends on that. And so do the livelihoods of anyone that you might work with. Okay, I'm moving on to the next thing. You need to plan your future meticulously, deliberately, intentionally. Stay informed and up to date. I listen to podcasts a lot. Like I'm an avid consumer of podcasts because I like to be up to date, and I listen to them at double the speed so I don't suffer from my ADHD, which, you know, sometimes makes me lose focus on things that don't stimulate me enough. You know, so I'm always staying up to date on what's current, what's relevant. You know, you need to also be able to discern between a fallacy and a reality, because in today's world, it's all about the impressions that they create. Sorry, if you could just keep the screen on for me, because that's my timer. All right? You need to be able to discern, because it's show business. And everybody's trying to show you something. Everybody's trying to lure you into something. Everybody's trying to market themselves to you and sell themselves to you. So you need to be able to discern between fallacy and reality while you're planning your future, so that you don't find yourself down the wrong rabbit holes or competing against shadows and ghosts. You need to be imaginative and influence change for your ideal future reality, right? So one day I thought to myself, okay, fine. Once all these accolades have been achieved, once you've reached these milestones, once these hairy, audacious goals are behind you, what next? And I preempted it. And I felt an emptiness. And I was like, oh my goodness. By the time I've achieved all these goals that I've got, that I've set for myself, I'm going to feel a lack of purpose. I'm going to need something to give me that purpose. And that's where my imagination came in. You know, I could preempt what was going to happen. I could preempt the feeling of, okay, I've got nothing left to drive me. I've got nothing to light a fire under my bum, right? And the next goal was to ensure that I've got financial stability. You know, I can afford my lifestyle. I can afford to live. And that might seem like a really simple goal, but within our industry, very few people are actually able to have financial stability. So then I thought to myself, okay, what will I need to then do once I've achieved all these hairy, audacious goals, to ensure that my livelihood is maintained and that I never need to work another day in my life again because of my creativity. There were a few things that I then knew I needed to do. I needed to spend less than I make. Simplest thing. You know, if you spend less money than you make, you'll always have money. You know, and when you've got money, you can save it and you can. In what? In yourself and in your skills. Investing in your skills is an investment in yourself. Right. So then I started using my money for things less frivolous than, Louis Vuitton, Versace. This top is actually, there's only 2 in the country. I didn't pay for it. There's a guy who was dating my sister, and I thought the privilege of dating my sister means he needs to give me this one of. So I took it from him. These slides also, I keep them and I maintain them because I don't intend on buying the Yeezys. Those are the really expensive ones. That's not an investment in myself, really, because it doesn't help my skills. But it's an investment in my image. And one thing about that image is that this person is not someone who spends money frivolously. And that helps you. Because when people are going to give you lots of money, they need to know that you're not going to waste it buying Lamborghinis, when you should be buying trucks that load coal and power our power stations instead of having us in load shedding, things like that. And then you need to also strive to create multiple revenue streams. When we started in this business, there was no such thing as streaming. So streams were either places where you got water or places where you got money, right? We didn't think of revenue streams like your music being accessed on Apple Music and Spotify or YouTube. That didn't exist. So after the first few months or the first initial sale of your CD, of your single, of your album, there was no more money that you could get. That was it. You needed to go back to studio, cut another record. Today we've got many of these streams of income. YouTube is a stream of income. Spotify is a stream of income. Apple Music is a stream of income. Apple Podcasts is a stream of income. In fact, you don't even need to perform as a performing artist now to make money. You can go to a club, sit there at the table with some pretty people, and they'll pay you for an appearance. It's many streams of income that we're creating just by being creative. So for me and my financial stability, I need to ensure that there's many multiple streams of income. This is also another stream of income. Right now, we're streaming on YouTube, right? This is a speaking engagement. You guys are inside this room. You're learning from me. I'm creating that value and I'm selling myself to the next customer who's going to invite me to speak. Show off. You heard that saying? Exactly. So you can't be showy if you're going to be managing other people's dreams. You understand? You can't be the one who's got the best clothes in the room or looking the most snazzy, right? Even though my clothes are not that expensive, you know, I put a lot of effort into making sure that every color matches, you know, down to the socks. That's deliberate effort. Doesn't cost money, just time. You understand? Your personal style complements your personal brand. I'm an easygoing guy, casual. You guys wear school uniforms so that you don't show off. If you didn't know that. I know they put badges and academic scrolls so you do get a chance to show off, but that's because you're showing off with your skills, not with how much money your parents have. Right? Right? And then the last, final thing, last but not least, if your finances are in order, no one cares how you look. Because you can get into any room, even with slides on, no formal shoots. Very important. The reason why I'm speaking to you about management, right, is because a lot of people speak about the talent, the superstar, the megastar. To be a megastar is taxing on one's soul, on one's spirit. You always have to be performative. Every time you appear in the public, it is a performance. And some people are not cut out for a performance 24/7, 365, every single day of their lives. Right? And it also takes a lot of luck to get there. A lot of luck to get there. And not everyone will be blessed with that good fortune of having a lucky break, of having a big hit single that sets off your career, and then every other song that you do, even if it's trash, just tops the charts because your reputation precedes you. Okay? Not everybody can be Kanye. It takes a lot to be Kanye. You understand? It's a lot of pressure. Everywhere he goes, it's a performance. Anytime someone takes a picture of him, it gets 1 million views. You know? Anything he does. Even if he's just eating, you know, a plate of jollof rice by himself at a restaurant. The guy at the till, after taking his money, might take a picture of him. All of a sudden, it's all over the internet. Then you see Kanye eating jollof rice, and you wonder, why? Is there any humanity? Why do they treat him like an animal? That's what happens when you're the performer. When you're the manager, you can switch it on and off. You have office hours, 9 to 5 or whatever it is. You can manage the time. So that is the skill that we need, because we are sitting on a gold mine, literally, figuratively. The thing is about this gold mine is that we've dug all the gold from under the ground. And now the riches are what are on the surface. What are the riches? The riches are between your ears, each and every single one of you. Your concepts, your imagination, the fact that you guys can shape and create reality and bend it to your will. Each and every single one of you have that ability, have that opportunity. If I could do it from across the train tracks while I was in high school, you can do it too. You understand? I'd like to leave you guys with a quote from Kanye. I ain't play the hand I was dealt, I changed my cards. So whatever hand you've been dealt, whatever situation you come from, should not define you. Your imagination can bend reality. You can change your cards. You understand? You're not at a casino where the house always wins. No. You create and shape your reality. Do you understand that? Yes. So all of you have got a responsibility right now to understand that when you're walking into the world of arts and entertainment, what you're getting yourself into. And I think I've given you a little bit of a reality check, and I've given you everything you need as a basis to understand that it's not all about being on stage, performing for everyone. You know, there's a lot of skills that you guys can contribute to and ensure that we milk this gold mine for all it's worth. The best music in the world is made in Gauteng. The best of African culture is all here in Gauteng. All 54 African states, 55 if you count Western Sahara as an independent state, are here in Gauteng. All their cultures, all their languages are here in Gauteng. There's no more culturally diverse place for you to base the new reality that you're creating on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The micro. Want to check. Thank you so much, Nota, the authority. I think you touched on so many things, that you've learned across your career, and it was really great to see how you've unpacked the different lessons that you've learned. I hope you all have got something from it. The amazing thing about SIA Africa Academy Conference, those who are watching, is the fact that it's bringing together different stakeholders in the arts and culture scene, the creative sector, and also in business. So when it comes to arts and culture, there are various facets of it, various individuals who are moving the culture forward. It's not just about music, but each and every stakeholder who is part and parcel of the entertainment that we take in. Who loves cartoons over here? Yeah? Did some of you have a chance to watch Cartoon Network? You did, yeah, because I'm not sure if it's still on. I think they said goodbye or something. But cartoons have and will always be a very important foundation for us, for everyone. So sometimes we wonder who are the people, creating these animes, these cartoons. And have you actually ever asked yourself? There's a big team, behind some of the cartoons you like to watch, some anime you like to watch. There's a big team there, creatives, individuals who are, creating this, working hard every day, doing voiceovers and whatnot, but we never get to see them. So we're very happy to talk to somebody and to have somebody talk to us about what does it take to create a career in animation. So up next, we have the Deputy Chairperson of Animation SA, who will shed some light on this very interesting industry that we call animation. What does it take to have a creative career? In her session titled Animation, an Evolving Industry, she will talk to us all about this. Ladies and gentlemen, online and in the cinema, please help me welcome on stage the amazing Isabel Rock.
Hi everyone. Sorry about the paper-based. I assumed there would be a screen here until I realized it will be all behind me. Have you got my slides? Okay, I am from Animation SA. We're a 16-year-old industry body representing the interests of animation, VFX, now gaming, and soon to be VR as well. And our vision is to create the conditions necessary to foster a globally competitive, sustainable, and transformed animation and VFX industry for South Africa. So Animation SA has multiple departments. We do various things. I see my slides are still not up. So from my unit, which is my real passion, social impact and human capital innovation, where we run an incubator. The incubator, this is one of the images from the incubator from an animator called Isaac Chokwe, who's doing African Warrior Queens. And he literally took the pictures of African Warrior Queens from the underground Johannesburg Library and rebuilt them in photogrammetry. So the actual characters you'll be seeing are the faces of the actual women that ruled at that time. You can skip to the following slide. Go on. So one of the things we did this year was Career Day at Basha Uhuru, where we brought in experts in VR, VFX, etc. So all of you young people, definitely catch our Career Day at Basha Uhuru. I think it's going to be in October this year. But you can also go onto the Conhill website to get details of when it will be running. You can move the slide on to the next one. So yeah, we also have a merchandising stand, because within the incubator, we also look at commercializing your brand assets. And so an animation, I say, is like an octopus. It has multiple tentacles and multiple revenue streams. And so commercializing the brand assets allows you to extract that value from that. So the animators are working on the African dolls based on their characters, the clothing ranges, etc. So to start off with the first question, scroll up. You can pass the pictures. We're going to talk, I'm going to start off with the industry's evolution over the last decade. So, of course, it was hit very hard by the global economic crisis of 2009, which resulted in many companies moving from full-time employment to contract work. And that has huge implications in terms of the labor law, and all creatives suffer from that. If you're a freelancer, look how you fit into the labor law and what kind of support and protection there is for you. And these are things, as an industry organization, that we are fighting in the background and trying to get changed. So there was a big focus. The beauty of one of the actions that took place was that focus on creative industries. Once government realized that we're making almost as much as the agriculture industry, there's like a slight difference. We employ more people than the mining industry. Okay, they make more money, but our income is quite significant. So government is finally giving our industry a focus, and that's a huge growth and development from the past. Another sort of impact that took place over the last decade is that quite a few productions have moved their TV series offshore and are producing them in other countries, especially Asia, because they have better budgets and they have better government support. So one of the things as the industry organization that we're fighting is things like the Copyright Amendment Bill, which affects your businesses in the most significant way. And it looks like we're losing that battle, and it's coming down to our imbalanced legal system, that it's about who has the most money, and we simply did not have the 250,000 rand a month required for the legal bill to take on the big international giants that are fighting this bill to make sure it goes in their favor. So some of the other developments is co-production treaties. We just had the launch of the Nigerian co-production treaty at the Johannesburg Film Festival. We have a treaty with New Zealand. And if you want to get the full list of all of the treaties that we have, you can go onto the NFEF website, of which for young people, there are also bursaries to enter the animation, film and television industry there as well. So I think the biggest shift in the last decade was, of course, COVID and the impact of COVID, which resulted in remote working. For the animation and gaming industry, this was really great because it really changed how studios were working. And a lot have moved to a hybrid model where some are based in these studios and some work from home. Because they realized that actually work was taking on so much of their lives that by being in their home space, they could be like creatives and work at midnight and work early in the morning, and whichever time works best for them, which tends to be the case with creatives. One of the other big thing that's taking place is that they're poaching a lot of our senior staff. There's an international shortage of animators, gamers, and last time I checked, it was around 30,000 shortage. And so all of our top people, now that the world sees what incredible animation South Africa produces, our studios work on big Marvel films. There are incredible films that the average South African is not aware that South African studios worked on the VFX and special effects of those films. So one of the things that Animation SA does is the Cape Town International Festival. It's been going for almost a decade now, and it's really blown up now that we've partnered with Comic-Con. We are in Fame Week, and MIP Africa has joined as well. So it's really become quite a powerful festival. This was a pitching session that some of my incubatees pitched their first animated TV series to Nickelodeon, Netflix. It was quite a really great panel of judges. So another big impact, and this is more than a decade, is the success of Dora the Explorer, Doc McStuffins, and of course, most recently, Black Panther, which resulted in an increased focus on the creative industries in Africa. So now there is a massive demand for creative content and what I call the new gold rush of mining content from Africa. And South Africa had a lot of time to prepare for this demand. And unfortunately, bad planning, putting in the proper incentives in place to prepare the industry for this has kept us behind. And now we sit with critical and scarce skill shortages. And of course, exacerbated by the fact that our CETA is not effective to be able to ensure that we can put those internships in place and make sure that those young people are given that doorway into the industry. And then, of course, challenges with the DTI rebate, which, if you've seen in the media, there are lots of challenges with that. And these are also things as an industry body that we are fighting in the background. The first was for them to acknowledge animation and create an animation rebate. And then the ongoing drama of refining it to fit better for the industry. There was a gaming rebate. Unfortunately, for the lack of use, it was removed. But these are one of the things that we can now lobby to bring that back and design it more for use of the industry. NFEF is one of the great beacons of light that funds your first script, your development, your short film, your production. But unfortunately, they don't understand animation properly. So there have been a few challenges. One of them was giving out a slate to very inexperienced filmmakers, which resulted in massive delays on the next slate. But now they've given it to a really impressive young Black female who's got an incredible slate of African animated series. So I'm really looking forward to what comes out of that. And then, of course, the big excitement is Afrexim Bank dedicating, $500 million towards the creative industries and investing in creative industries. So that's going to open up a really exciting potential. You can scroll to, I'm going to show you some pretty pictures in between, so it's not just boring talking head. This is one of the projects in the incubator called Outer Rim, done by Xolile and Labatsi. It's a futuristic space odyssey series. You can skip to the next slide. So now moving into change of thinking, what kind of thinking has resulted in, operating business in a better way? And I think the biggest shift for me took place in 2016 when I was finally ready to come back to the industry. I actually left the industry after the last global economic crisis, where I lost 20 million rands, lost my houses, lost everything. And then I was like, stop the bus, I'm getting off, I'm going to live on the beach and just relax for 3 years. It ended up being 3 years. And in that healing and relaxation, and who knew the sun is beneficial for depression? It just enlightened me. So I lived in Muizenberg on the beach and did all the most alternative healing you can find. Healed a 15-year endometriosis where I couldn't have children. And of course, then had a child and had to come back to Joburg. So came back to Joburg because in the entire time that I was in Cape Town, I just did social impact. For some reason, Cape Town offered me healing, but not financial. Joburg sent me all the money that I needed to survive in that time. And so I had to come back to Joburg. I had a child to feed and educate. And so in coming back was the question on, do I want to come back into an industry where I lost 20 million rands and, had to do such massive healing around my own personal transformation. It was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. You cannot imagine the education you get from failure and loss. And that's why living in a country that doesn't value failure, that as an entrepreneur, failure is a critical process of self-evolution and business evolution. And in America and first world countries, they won't give you investment if you haven't had a few failures because they know the leap you make as an entrepreneur when you fail. So in coming back to Joburg, I had to really think about whether I wanted to come back into an industry where the business model didn't make sense in my head. And it was only when that clicked did I go, okay, now I understand what needs to be done. And hence I came back to join my industry organization, which I happen to be one of the founding members of. But at the time, I started 1 million years ago in animation. There were no Black women, 2 other women, and very few Black people. You could count them on one hand. So, I've always been passionate about developing the industry and developing young people and reducing those barriers. So going back into the industry organization for me was a critical starting point in addressing some of the problems that prevented the business model from working. And so I had to do the shift around feature film. And I was like, the feature film business model does not work for animation in a third world country. I worked closely with Stuart from Triggerfish, who came to my internship and subsequently hired a lot of the young people from my internship, because I was going through a global economic crisis and a burglary and SABC not paying R1 million for a year, all in the same year. So 3 strikes and I was out. But I was at least able to get employment for all of my staff within their studios. So yeah, once I realized that feature film, you really need to have earned your stripes to be able to do feature film in animation. It's too big a leap. And even though I've done 13 short films that won awards, they only won, most innovative company in Africa award and a SAFTA, and it's just not enough to move into feature film. So I then looked at the TV series model, and that for me was really the sweet spot, and that's where the machine in my head started to click, because it solved multiple problems. It lowered the barriers to entry for SMMEs and for interns. It's a more forgiving platform, more forgiving audience too, and it's a better runway for skills development, and especially, which Animation SA is really passionate about, is increasing that senior animation, because that's where the really amazing content comes out from, is when you've had a decade or two of experience. That's when the magic starts to really happen. On to the next slide. This is La Cucaracha, also one of the projects in the incubator. They won the last slate from NFEF, so we're trying to help them make those into a reality. Next slide. So continuing on the changing of thinking, TV series has a better business model because it has a better return on investment. Your risk with feature film is incredibly high. And unless you've done a few hit running TV series, I wouldn't advise going into feature film before you've really laid your foundation of success. And for me, the most important thing is the return on impact, because this is something that people forget, that when you're running a business in a third world country, you cannot ignore the importance of the impact that you give and the difference you make in your society. So I love that double RI, double ROII. So yeah, one of the things that we're focusing on is Africanization of imagery and animation. And this allows us, an incubator allows us that space to experiment these things and play with these things, and also to innovate on the pipeline. So when you're in a studio, you simply don't have the time to be innovating on pipeline. You go with the pipeline you set up and you run your machine and work it as much as possible, because you need that return on investment. But when you innovate on the pipeline, like what we're doing, and it's something we did in my studio, which was a game changer. It increased our productivity. It had huge repercussions. But the innovations that we're working on now is around playing with free software and working in the reality that we live in a third world country, and that we have to be cognizant of the cost of software is simply too exorbitant. And then looking at playing with things like motion capture and incorporating a gaming engine into that pipeline. So really doing stuff that's very different. And through doing that, we, on the TV series that we're testing on, we've been able to drop the budget by 50%. Of course, the proof will be in the pudding once the TV series is actually complete. This is the testing phase. But once we prove that, then we will be able to reduce the budgets, because the reality is animation budgets are insane. So I want to talk a bit about innovation, because a lot of people think that innovation is this complex thing, and you've got to really be a smart person with your maths and science. But innovation can really be simple. In my studio, it was a simple thing of human resources innovation and how to create a working environment for creatives, because the corporate structure is not ideal for them. When I was first starting, South Africa had just come out of, our racist past. And so my studio automatically divided itself between black one side and white one side. So I had to innovate on human resources strategies to ensure that integration. And as much as I tried multiple things, every month there was one thing that worked. Who can guess what that was? Yeah. Drops people's barriers, makes you see the true person. So that was quite an interesting discovery. You can move to the next slide. So yeah, one of the simple things that we did, and because I was looking at, the blocks to preventing animation from succeeding in South Africa, I started to look on an ecosystem level, and I started to look on a value chain level. And so a simple little innovation of moving everything from the end of the value chain to the beginning of the value chain was a game changer. Because and I asked the question, how does value chain innovation and ecosystem changes affect investment in the sector? And it's huge, because what that shift does is that it risk mitigates and it increases your business model. So it allows for an actual business model. So when you go online and you Google the value chain, it's development, pre-production, production, uh, distribution, licensing and merchandising, marketing, etc. And so a lot of young people are misled by the thought that, oh, I can start my marketing at the end of production, and NFEF only funds you at the end of production. So even they are living in an archaic time where marketing has to start up front. Your distribution strategy, you need to have that clear up front. Your licensing and merchandising strategy, all of these things form part of your business model. And this is a key shift that needs to take for the creative industries, is that you have to start thinking about your business model and how you're going to generate your multiple incomes from the brand that you're building. And that's also another shift that animators and creatives needed to move from, is that I'm not just producing a product, a TV series, I'm producing a brand with multiple income streams. And how do I show that to an investor? And how do I ensure that I get that? And that comes from really doing rigorous development. This is a Kulununana. It's an African nursery rhymes series, which I was really excited to bring into my incubator because I have 2 young children and they had to watch Choo Choo TV. And then they started singing with an Indian accent. It was hilarious. It was very cute, but on a deeper level, it was very sad, where I was like, where are the African nursery rhymes? Please move to the next slide. You can move to the next slide. This is Ace. This is an investigative journalism series done by a comic artist. He's in the Sunday Times, I think, Bethwell Mangena. He's actually one of my graduates from my internship a million years ago. And I really like this because they're playing with a lot of the corruption that's going on in the world and bringing interesting comedic and humorous slant on it. And a lot of it is kind of based on the truth because they're journalists and they had access to the information that didn't get out there. So it could be quite contentious, which I love controversy. So I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, the value chain changes. So in moving everything up to the beginning of the value chain, it meant upgrading the value chain and really starting to think about all of the pieces of the puzzle that are going to prevent your project from being a success. Research, of course, being given proper time because that's where the real value comes. When I did Ubiza the Calling, I would say that the biggest success of why that was such a massive audience, high audience ratings, was because of the incredible research we did into the Sangoma world. And of course, hiring Sangomas all on the set, which was an interesting trip. And then, of course, development and training. You have to start working on your human resources strategy up front if you want to cognizant of the challenges in human resources, our critical skill shortage, that is going to be a block to you being able to achieve that and start working on putting that in place. So as the incubator, we run that parallel with internships. This is actually the year that we're running massive internships in the incubator. So yeah, looking at, drilling deeper into development and really making sure, as I said, that your business model is strong so that by the time you go into production, you know that this is going to be a financial hit. And this is the opportunity that an incubator allows us, because we're incubating 10 first-time African animated TV series producers. You can go to the next slide. And we put in the requirement that they needed to be in business for 3 years because you needed to have earned your stripes and you needed to be at a level where you could understand the high level that this incubator is pitched at. You've got to take the information and implement it, and be able to make a success of it. This is one of our top entrepreneurs, Josi Ntono, and he's creating an early childhood development series called The Calabashes, taken from the African calabash, and making these young kids who are going to be educating a robot, which I love the potential of that, because his focus is on values and how do we ensure that, you know, robots are programmed with the proper values, because this is a reality we're going to have to deal with, machines controlling many things in our lives in the future. And it becomes really important as to what do we program them with. And if they just become machine driven, it starts to have limitations and dangerous impacts. So I'm really excited about the potential of that series. He's actually going into production this year. So we're incubating him at Conhill in the Creative Hub, where he'll be starting his first series. So on to the next slide. So what Animation SA and industry organizations like mine are called are intermediaries. We're the intermediary between government and the industry. Please give me a time count. 5 minutes? Okay, I gotta move faster. So this change was really needed, not just from changing the value chain of the industry, but also looking at an intermediary value chain, which adds on extra to the value chain before development. So looking at social impact and identifying, you know, where the skills are. Schools have cancelled, government schools have cancelled arts out of schools. That has huge impact on us. And we have to look at how do we address that? How do we attract and design a roadmap for young people to go into animation and make them aware of simple things of how much drawing you need to do in a day to qualify, and just you know, all of the requirements to become an animator, that there's a bit of a science brain and an arts brain. So it's a very unique type of person who goes into gaming, animation, VR, VFX. And then, of course, human capital innovation, of ensuring that we address the issues in the animation schools, and start to increase the quality of that. And that goes back to CETA, and our unit standards are outdated, and updating all of that. And I've identified a head of education who can solve all of our SAQA and CETA stuff, because it requires an expert who understands that. But that's going to cost me almost R1 million a year. So fundraising is an ongoing thing for industry organizations. I'm going to leave the list and move to the next slide. This series is called Spin. He's an El Dorado Park, young colored guy producing a story about young kids who graduate from matric and can't afford university or didn't get in for the grades, and they've got to spin, which is hustle in American term. It's a really cute series. So one of the big blocks in our industry are ecosystem. We have massive ecosystem challenges, and there's a high degree of fragmentation, which limits clear industry-wide strategies, coordination, and leadership, misalignment of skills demand and training provision. Our legislative and policy environments supported to enable growth and ease of doing business. So that's what it should be doing. But unfortunately, lack of integration of skills development into the majority master plans, inefficiency and waste of resources, lack of systemic approach to resources, lack of a systemic approach to ecosystem management. Projects run in isolation within ecosystems as an approach to challenges, as opposed to creating that coordinated systemic solution. And that's a big shift that government needs to make, is to connect all the dots that have an influence on our various ecosystem. Next slide. This is African Warrior Queens. You can move on. Jada Pinkett Smith just did African Queens. So we've got our first one done on Queen Zinga. It's on Netflix at the moment. So it needs to be a multi-pronged strategy for systemic change. There needs to be coordination and direction, significant opportunity, change, as well as political will. And we have a few of these in place. So we are on the right track. We're just moving too slow. We should have done this 2 decades ago, and we would be reaping the benefits right now had we put that in place. So this, you know, this change can be catalyzed by ecosystem facilitators and intermediaries. So facilitators would be like your SASFED, which the independent producers, the Writers Guild, etc., Animation SA all sit under. And those facilitators work with the intermediaries to then work with the stakeholders to ensure that systemic change. And of course, they must be multi-pronged and systemic. Next slides, Cosmic Rays, 2 young women creating a series, also futuristic, but they come back to planet Earth that has been completely decimated, and they have to relearn the indigenous knowledge systems, which is the Khoi culture, and to learn to grow and develop themselves, and take the knowledge systems to help their planet. Next slide. So the opportunity is to create an enabling ecosystem that will help foster opportunities for inclusive growth and the development of stakeholders and the industry as a whole, to ensure its sustainability and that it's efficient and effectively run. And an enabling ecosystem should be globally competitive and ready to transform, and or already transforming, which we are in that process, in order to increase access for all. Next slide. This is Batong, and as is the process of creativity, once I brought art directors on board, they completely scrapped all this artwork and were like, let's get back to the drawing board. None of this works. Do you see the creepy baby at the bottom? It's Ducky. Next slide. Actually, I can stop 2 minutes. So one of the things that I am proposing at the moment is a risk mitigation strategy that takes into consideration the fact that as I'm developing entrepreneurs in this incubator, I realized that, you know, the licensing and merchandising and the implementation of that strategy, the marketing, the legal, all of these different pieces, distribution, sales, are putting a huge burden on them as creatives to do what they do best, which is create excellent IP. And if we can create a body that incorporates this, and this has been proven internationally for inventors and, you know, people who have the skills for something specific, but not necessarily all these business skills. And so the business builder and startup model allows for all of those divisions to be put in place and giving the creative to focus on what they do best, which is create excellent content. Next slide. This is just a little a tracking system for our job creation, where we have created 132 jobs in the last 6 months. Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, thank you so much, Isabel Rock. I think I left some of my scripts here. Let's give it up to Isabel Rock. A game changer in the industry of animation, not just in South Africa, but globally. Thank you, Isabel, for what you and your team are doing. We appreciate. That was Isabel. If you would have questions for her, please make sure you send them to us online. We will definitely make sure she responds to them. So we will move next to the next speaker, and I would like to introduce Nomsa Mazwai. The next speaker is bolder, brighter, and more educated than many people. Like, seriously. She has a master's in arts, international political economy and development, a postgraduate certificate in emerging markets, as well as a postgraduate certificate in municipal finance. Whew. Hey, girl. She's also a summer winner, winning musician, an active community builder, and practicing development economist in transition, advisory, and impact investment. She is the board chairperson of the Music Creators of South Africa. Today, her session title is Creativity is Not Enough. And I think you can read, you can hear from her achievements, you know, all the education, but that's never enough. Not one thing is enough. It's not like, oh, I studied this and I'm set out for life, or, oh, I'm a talent, I'm creative, I'm set out for life. But it's all about putting all the things you can learn in life, in school, in your career together. And that's what we want to hear. Why is creativity not enough? Put your hands together. Let's give a warm welcome to Nomsa Mazwai. Welcome.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And as we wait for them to put up the presentation, can we all get on our feet? Please. Let's put our hands in the air. Let's go to the left. right. Take a deep breath in. Whew. All right, because you have been sitting for a while, speech after speech after speech after speech. All right, creativity is not enough. Now, how you work the pretzi is that you just keep pressing forward. Ne? Next. My name is Nomsa Mazwai. I'm the chairperson of Music Creators South Africa. I'm also the performing artist Nomi Superstar. And my presentation today is only about the fact that creativity is not enough. You can be the best talent, you can be the most outstanding, it isn't enough. And so today we're going to be breaking down what are the different ways that you can make a living. And I'm directing my conversation towards composers. So singers, people that want to write their own music, make music, write lyrics, and make a living from that. Are there any of those people in the room? All right, so that's the conversation today. So let me just introduce myself with my EPK, which everybody should have.
My name is Nomsa Mazwai. I'm known all over the world as Nomi Superstar. Who is Nomi Superstar? Nomsa Mazwai is an artist, a creator, a writer, a thinker, an engager, a young person living free in South Africa.
We know what we've been looking for. Excited, finding something more. A love that is more.
That's who Nomi Superstar stands for. I'm a young Black girl born in Soweto, and music is my life. You know, I love writing music. I love writing songs. I love changing the world through my music. I mean, for me, I'm a young creator, activist, thinker, doer, just actively engaging in my South Africa. And my music is testament to that. Like, it's testament to who I am as an artist.
Maybe I could have been led straight to the point. Maybe
I've performed all over the world. Oh my goodness, I've been so blessed. I've played at Primavera Sound in Barcelona, Spain. I've played at the Africa Festival in Würzburg, Germany. I've played Opi Kopi. I've played the Cape Town International Jazz Festival. And I just came from the most incredible show. I just played Afro Punk Joburg. I mean, does it get any better than that? You can feel it when I get on stage, you know. I love getting on stage with my full band. I have different setups. And one of them is my full band, which is 4 backing vocals, 3-piece horn section, drum, bass, piano, synth, 3 dancers. It goes back on stage. I mean, I'm influenced by Fela Kuti, Yusondo, artists that really got on stage with a setup, like where it's just like ta ta dancers, horns, boom 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 boom, where you're just enjoying yourself. You know those festivals where memories are made. That's where I play. You know, Nomi Superstar is always like this. You know, people think that my smile is glued to my face. I also sometimes believe it is, because I'm just happy. I'm having a good time. I'm enjoying my life. I've been so blessed. And I want to continue allowing the blessings to rain down on me. And I want to perform and perform and perform. This year is no different. I want to hit new stages, new audiences, new people. You know, if you want to get in touch with us, my website is nomisuperstar.com. On Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, I'm at nomisuperstar. You can get a taste of my music. My music is a vibe. Okay? It's that kind of music where you're just having a great time, you know? You're just having a great time. I never follow trends. You will never hear my music being on trend, but it's on fabulous all the time. That's what my sound is. You know some of my music. You know, it is what it is. This is what it feels like. I've worked with Ninth Wonder. I've worked with Black Coffee, Rhapsody, I mean, Harrison Crump, the list is endless. My music is the music that you love. Because I love what I'm doing. And I'm having the best time doing it.
Like you do what you do, you go where it takes you. Let's go, let it take you.
So, what we're going to be talking about next, just press arrow, yeah, is the fact that creativity is not enough. And what I'm going to give you is a roadmap to turning your creativity into a sustainable career. And let me say this, there was the mention of failure before, ne? To this day, and you just watched my EPK, I have never lived off my music. So that must give you an idea of what Nota spoke to you about. Vision. I want to be a particular kind of artist. I want to have particular kinds of jobs. I want to be in particular kinds of spaces. And so right now, up until this age that I am at right now, I've never made a sustainable career from my music. I've actually just worked as an economist and in other areas, as a manager, as a business manager. Every time money came in, I put it back in to the business, into Nomi Superstar. Right. To be successful, must know who you are. What do you like doing? Do you prefer being around specific kinds of people? There are people who enjoy going to perform on a small stage in a gom club over and over and over and over. There's people who enjoy that. I'm not one of those people. There's people who like going to Chisanyamas and DJing at Chisanyamas. I'm not one of those people. I want to perform with my band. I want dances. I want all of those things. So if I want those things, I must know myself. I must know what I want. And it's not that I haven't performed in places I don't want. It's because I performed in the places that I don't want to perform that I knew that I don't want to perform here. Do you enjoy getting on stage? Because there's a difference between being a composer, being a songwriter, and being a performer, singer-songwriter. So Msaki is a singer-songwriter, she performs. Well, maybe I want to get a big performer, Michael Jackson, but I'm not sure he wrote all of his music. But you've got to check on yourself. Are you a singer, songwriter? Are you a composer? Are you a performer? Those are different things, and they make money in different ways. And you don't want to think you're a performer when you're not a performer. Performers are performers. They wake up and they do that thing all the time. They want to be great. They want to be on stage. That's what they're about. And they work at their craft. Chris Brown, you see him every day. He's dancing. Usher, every day. Beyonce, every day. Makadzi, every day. You see, she wants to be on stage. She wants to be a performer. Is she the best singer? It's up to the person that's listening. What would you like to achieve with your creativity? Do you want to be successful monetarily? Do you want to do it as a hobby? Is it something that is a spiritual calling for you? What do you want to achieve out of your creativity? What is important for you? Next slide. So I'm talking to the creators that want to make money from their creativity. And when you want to make money from being a songwriter or a composer, there's two organizations that you've got to make sure that you've got a membership with. That's Capasso and Samro. Capasso is going to collect your mechanical royalties. And they also do a lot of collecting in digital. So every time your music is playing on the digital service providers like Spotify, like YouTube, like iTunes, they're the ones that are going to collect for you. Samro, they're going to collect on your performance royalties. So they're going to collect from the broadcasters whenever they show your content. And Capasso does the same, but they deal with different rights, right? And so they collect. So if you're a composer, you are going to have both of these rights, because all of you, I would encourage you to never sign away your master. Always try to invest in your own recording studio, in your own everything, so that you own the master, or you own the master with your friends. So if there's a producer and you're a singer, then you make a contract. What's that contract called? It's called a split sheet. If you start your career and you don't do those three things, When you get into the studio, you fill out a split sheet before you leave, whether the song is finished or it's not finished. You decide how much did everybody contribute. What did you? Maybe there were 2 or 3 songwriters. How much of the song did you write? Maybe then you say, okay, let's split it 3 ways, guys. Then there's the composer, the person who's written the melody. But also, if you're a singer-songwriter, even if you go into a studio with a producer who gave you a beat, it doesn't mean that you do not have melody rights. Let me give you an example. Macarena high, right? That's a vocal melody. It's not in the beat. That person who sang Macarena must get their melody, because that's all we remember about that song. So imagine if they don't get a melody right and only the person that wrote the beat and the drums and the piano got the money. Can you understand what I'm saying? That when you are in a studio, just because you're writing lyrics, if you're singing too, you must compare your vocal melody to the beat. And if your vocal melody is different to the beat, it might sit on the beat, but it's different to the beat. It's unique. Then you must say, I feel I deserve a vocal melody here. I've contributed vocal melody, so that you're getting the lyric and you're getting the melody as well. Because a composition is made out of 2 parts. It's made out of lyrics, and then it's also made out of melody. So if you wrote the song, you already own half the song. If you wrote the song and also contributed vocal melody, like my song I did with Jazzy Disciples, they did a very basic piano beat, and I added melody. Live your life. That's vocal melody. So I own 67.5% of the song, and the 2 Jazzy Disciples share the rest of the 32%. You must negotiate these things. A song might not make you money now, but if it ever makes money, you'll want to be getting your fair share. Jerusalem as a good example. So you must think about those things. Now, I spoke about what kind of creative do you want to be. So there's people who compose. Who do you think makes the most money for composers? And how do you think they make their money? Come on, not all at once. Who do you think, which composers do you think are making the most money? Which artists?
I think JR.
JR, okay. 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 And AKA, anyone else? Black Coffee. Do you know who the top composers are? You won't even know their names when I say them. The top one, I didn't even recognize his name. Do you know where they're making their money? Sync. Production music. Production music by far makes more money. Production music is music that's in TV series, music that's in movies. Top performers in terms of composer earnings in South Africa, Hugh Masekela, Abdullah Ibrahim, because they have done music for big films. And they're making a lot of money. There's a South African composer that did the music for Notting Hill, made a lot of money from that. So if you are in this game and you're not a performer, but you're a great composer, you'll probably make even more money, because productions need compositions. Movies need compositions. Adverts need compositions. Soccer stadiums need compositions. Think about all the things that you experience where music is playing. That's production music. So I've spoken to you about Capasso and Samro, and they will give you royalty income. So every time your content plays or it's used, if it plays, it pays. They are the ones that pay you, and they only pay you if you're a registered member. These are the other income streams that you can get as a composer, a creator of music. There's streaming income. Now, let me explain streaming income for you because people don't know streaming. Streaming, if we were to say on average, which is a bad way to say it, you are making less than a cent per stream. Like it's less than a fraction of a cent per stream. But I'm going to explain this. So you'll find that in South Africa, many artists may complain because they'll say, I've got 22 million views and I got paid 40,000 Rand. And yes, those are the numbers. Ne? This is how streaming works. You know, have you watched that thing on TikTok about the Valpre water? Where they say a Valpre at the supermarket is 5 Rand. A Valpre at the garage is 10 Rand. A Valpre at the club is 20 Rand. A Valpre in an airplane is 30 Rand. It's all the same Valpre. The water doesn't change, but the setting that it's in makes the price different. Do you understand that concept? Okay. Streaming is very similar. You become your own shop and you are defined by the people that buy you. So like the Valpre at the airport, it's airport Valpre. So it's expensive Valpre. You become what you are. So what you decide you are going to be as an artist is very important because it determines your income. Streaming is user-based. Some users pay to use the platform. I'm not sure if you guys pay for the platform as students. There's that free one with the adverts. So if all your fans are students on free, you are making 0.000000001 cent. You are the cheapest Valpre, which means you've got to sell a lot of Valpre to make money. But if your user base is some people on family plans, some people on premium, some people living in New York, some people, because even where people are on YouTube, if somebody watches your YouTube video from America, they pay more to watch your video than a person sitting in South Africa watching the same video. Because in America, when YouTube plays an advert, there's a high chance that it might change into a sale, which means advertising on YouTube in America is more expensive than advertising in South Africa, which means if people are coming to watch you, you get a bigger share of that. So where your audience is and what pocket your audience has a big influence on how much money you make. So there are artists who might be streaming 1 million streams and they're making 10 times more than somebody who's streaming 100 million streams. Do you understand what I'm saying? Streaming is very specific. That's why you've got to know yourself. You've got to know your brand. You've got to know what you want. Performance fees and ticket sales. Some performers like to get booked. They get paid for the booking. Some artists like to put on their own gigs. When you're a performance fee artist, you might have to pay your manager. When you're a ticket sales artist, you're booking venue, you're doing jock, you're doing a lot of things to make your own show. But what's the difference? If I get booked for Afropunk and 10,000 people show up, my fee is my fee is my fee. It doesn't change. If I'm Casper Nyovest and I'm filling up the dome, every single person who buys a ticket means more money for me. CDs and physical merchandise. Think about what kind of artist you are, where you're going to make your money. If you are very popular as a church singer, you might still want to print CDs because one CD sale might be better than 10,000 streams. Then there's people that do influencer work. They get paid for that. And then, of course, there's licensing as well. And licensing is when you get paid to sync in a movie. But I'm talking about the licensing fee. A sync still means you'll get the royalty, but the fee is the money that you'll make up front. Next slide. In the music industry, you're going to be very confused because South Africa's music industry is very der mekaar. It's not made for the artist. So This is why we've created Music Creators South Africa, because it's very important for us to organize as composers, so that there's a nice ecosystem. We all need to exist in order for the industry to mature and become what we want it to be. But if you're a composer in the room today, please join Music Creators South Africa, because only composers can protect the rights of composers. And with the Copyright Amendment Bill, composers need to organize themselves. Next slide, please. Let me tell you why you need to be part of an association like that. And if you're in film, you must join the Film Association. Whatever organization you're in, you must join. Whatever field you're in, join the associations. Let me give you an example. I'm Nomi Superstar. This is my life. Remember, I told you I've never made money, but I will, because I made a big mistake. This is Nomi Superstar in 2010. She's performing, she's loving it, she's having such a great time. Wow, it's awesome. She wins the South African Music Award. It's amazing. Everybody wants to work with Nomi Superstar. It's just fantastic. Nomi Superstar's music is playing on radio. Nomi Superstar's music is on TV. It's on TV shows. And remember, I told you that's where the most money is at. And Nomi Superstar has a South African Music Award. Nomi Superstar is making money. SABC is paying Samro and Capasso because SABC pays the collecting organizations based on how much they use. They don't check, does Nomi Superstar belong to Samro or not? They just pay. Then Nomi Superstar's music went to Samro and went to Capasso. Hey, Nomi Superstar, where's Nomi Superstar? Nomi Superstar's in New York. Nomi Superstar is having fun. Nomi Superstar didn't register here. That was 10 years ago, 12 years ago. For 5 to 6 years, my music is playing. Metro FM, I'm gold listed. There's a playlist at Metro where they play your music over and over. You know the songs that you always hear playing on radio? That's amazing to be on there because you're earning, you're making income. I'm on those playlists. I'm not registered. What happens? Samro and Capasso distribute to their members what the members are supposed to get. But then there's this money that isn't being collected. What happens? In South Africa, it's called prescription. It prescribes. And what does that mean? After 2 or 5 years, depending on the collecting agency, they distribute it to their members for market share. So I've invested almost R1 million in my own career. And I'm sure I could have recouped maybe 20% of that with my royalties, but I didn't. And other people got my money. That's why we need an association, because it's not fair, especially in South Africa. Because in South Africa, we don't have a mature economy. We all speak different languages. We don't access a lot of information. Our music industry is disorganized. You can't put a time limit on people's money. That's my money. I worked for that money. Nobody else made that money. Nobody else deserves that money. But it's a global practice. And whenever I argue this point, I get told, but it's what happens overseas. In Europe, when they organize themselves in the same language. They organize themselves. They can all read. They all have access to internet. They all have access to information. It's a very developed society. You can't just take that practice and copy paste it in South Africa. So we're going to fight that one, the prescription nonsense. And when I take it to government and say, no, but we want our money. Who ate our money? Go fetch our money. Then we got the Copyright Amendment Bill. So I've spoken about that. Then we also want to have an association because there should be standard booking rates in South Africa. It shouldn't be that when somebody comes to Nomsa Mazwai or Nomi Superstar, and Nomi Superstar won't perform for less than 10,000, then there's somebody who's going to perform for 1,000. Because it's killing the industry. I went to an event and I saw this poet perform and I thought to myself, this guy has never been to an open mic. Because you can always tell the nonsense. Like engineers can tell people that didn't go to university. We can tell people that don't practice. Big contests and regulation. Do you know that if you want to hold a soccer match anywhere in South Africa, you have to consult SAFA? It must be like that. When people want to bring Beyonce to South Africa, they must consult us. That's when it happens, when you go to a Beyonce concert and you see the South African acts performing and their take is much lower. And then Beyonce comes on stage and all of a sudden all the other lights go on. You regulate that so that your artists don't look like Mickey Mouse when big acts come. So that's it. This is the information. And that's the website. And that's the number that you can call to get, well, this is the WhatsApp number to register, and that's the website to register. It's really easy registration, and I hope I kept time. I did.
Wow, brilliant. The superstar herself. Give it up to Nomi Superstar. So we want to move next to Gavin Kennedy. The next person I'm about to introduce on the stage actually defines himself as a serial entrepreneur. I really like that, because many times people ask some entrepreneurs in the creative sector, what do you do? And you're like, where do I start? I do 1, 2, 3, 4, and they only have a minute. So serial entrepreneur is a really great way of explaining who you are and what you do. Gavin is gonna help us understand podcasting a little bit better. This is the new media, it's growing very fast, particularly in my country. I'm not sure about the scene in SA, but I mean, I see it online. I see it everywhere. Everybody's getting into podcasting, be it audio or video. It's the new thing. And it's interesting to take in media and content in different avenues and not just rely on traditional media. So we're here to hear Gavin take us through the changing and evolving scene that is podcasting. His session is titled "To Be Understood, You Must Be Heard." Take it away, Gavin Kennedy. Welcome.
That's a lot of pressure to follow on from a superstar. And Nota put me under a lot of pressure for my sock choice this morning as well. So who here has already got a podcast? About 5 years ago, if I asked that question, I would get the response, what's a podcast? Who's planning on having a podcast soon? Now, be honest. Seriously? Okay, that's a surprise. Normally the response is 100% of the room has got a plan for a podcast. So what I'm going to do today is help give you some context to help you make better choices and understand how luck plays a role so that you can thrive in this industry as opposed to being swept by the winds of it. As you heard in the previous one, if you just leave things to chance, you may get left behind in some aspects. So we can kick off on some slides. Got some there. So we were asked to speak about evolution, but we're seeing that podcasting is a bit of a revolution. So we got a little bit of an anarchistic theme there. And onto the agenda, please. We're going to talk about what happened in the beginning, what shifted, what's next, where the opportunity is, and some FAQs that are regularly asked at these events. The most important thing you all have to realize about podcasting is that it's still early. It's really, really, really early in this space. I was half joking about 5 years ago, people not knowing what a podcast was. There are still people who have heard the word but don't know how to access them or listen to them. There are still some people who say, what's a podcast? In terms of uptake of podcast in the South African context, we're probably 5, 6, 7 years behind the adoption curve of the US and Europe. That's quite a big gap. Part of that gap is caused by data, lack of access to internet. The gap is closing, and I don't think it's going to stay 5 years. I think it's going to, we'll have a leapfrog effect and we'll catch up quicker in some respects. Can we move on? Cool. So my background, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been in radio and television for about 30 years. Once upon a time, we started a little station called Solid Gold in 1993. We were involved in setting up many community stations, Mix FM, Boer Community Radio, East Wave Radio, a whole bunch of stations. Also got involved with founding Soweto TV a very long time ago. And what happened about 5-6 years ago is while driving around, I realized that I hadn't listened to the radio in my car for some time. I'd only been listening to podcasts. And having been in radio and television for a long time, I found that interesting and decided to double down and get very, very involved in podcasting and audiobooks. And we now have studios in Randburg. We have 11 studios. We have clients in different parts of the world we work remotely with. We help large multinationals and hobbyists make podcasts. And it's podcast for us. So hopefully I can give you some insight into what's happening in the space and help you navigate it. In the beginning, next slide after that, please. So podcasts, technically there's no such thing as a podcast. It's just an RSS feed. Anybody know what an RSS feed is? It's a piece of code that just automatically updates and fetches information from somewhere else on the internet. They've been around for about 17, 18 years as a podcast, but they've evolved not at all since then. So the way RSS feeds worked 20 years ago, they still work now in terms of podcasting. So there's a lot that's not right with it, but it is evolving. It'll get better. Originally, they were called audio blogs. And that gives you some insight into the evolution and what people were thinking when podcasting was invented. People were creating blogs. There's several 100 million blogs on the internet now. But somebody discovered a way that you could speak your blog and make it easy for people to find and listen to. Well, theoretically, it was easy. What shifted? One more. What shifted was iTunes making it possible to put an RSS feed into it to aggregate your audio. Very technical, but you could go find somebody's RSS feed, put it into iTunes, and it would go and fetch all the audio content for you. That didn't mean it was easy to listen to. It's hard to imagine for most of you, but once upon a time, we didn't have the internet and we didn't have iPhones. And in the early days of the internet, when iTunes first started aggregating podcasts, I think there were 2,000 podcasts on iTunes initially. You had to synchronize your iTunes with the RSS feed. Then you had to get your iPod and plug it into your computer and synchronize your iPod with your computer. It was really painful. It was really a lot of friction. And what happened is podcasting disappeared for a long time. What happened next was, next slide, please. What happened next is what really activated podcasting, and that was the iPhone. For the first time, we didn't need to go through all those different steps. We had one device which fetched the RSS feed, put it on your phone, and gave you a player. And then after iPhone, next please, was this big shift where suddenly everything changed. And it wasn't just iTunes that you could use for podcasts. It was everywhere. Spotify, Deezer, Castbox, Audible, there's just a plethora of places that you could access the content. This also happened around about the same time as the entire industry got de-networked. So in my day, there was a TV series called Will and Grace. I don't know if anybody has ever seen it or heard it. So Will and Grace was the last big network television series we're ever going to have. What do you mean by that? Surely there's bigger TV shows. We're never going to have a show as big as Will and Grace ever again. Why? There were limited places you could watch television. ABC, NBC, CBS, and so forth. So after Will and Grace flighted on, let's say, a Tuesday night in the States, there was a very good chance that on a Wednesday morning, you could walk up to a random person and say, did you see what Will said yesterday? And they would know what you were talking about. After that, the network changed and we've got de-aggregation. Now everybody in the room can be a publisher on their own platform and website. So we can never aggregate the kinds of audiences that Will and Grace were able to do. So that creates some challenges, but it also creates some opportunities. If we go on to next, thank you. So I'm going to give you some proxies Because this is new, I'm going to have to use some proxies for what might happen, what podcasting might look like, how it might behave. And the first one is print. So when the printing press was invented, for the first time, somebody other than the church could produce written word. Before then, most people couldn't read, let alone write or print. So suddenly we're able to produce content, lots of it, and almost anybody could. So what do you suppose happened? Everybody started printing stuff. So in today's language, we say, have you got a podcast? Have you heard my podcast? Back then, I guess people were saying, have you read my book? Have you read my newsletter? Have you read my flyer? So we get this explosion of content, massive, massive explosion of content. And as anybody in the creative space will tell you, abundance creates scarcity. The more stuff you have, the scarcer the good stuff becomes, and it becomes harder to find. So that's one of the challenges we're going to find with podcasting, with any creative venture, is it gets hard to find the gems. The next proxy is music. Sure. Anybody remember Napster? It feels like a run down memory lane. We kind of grew up thinking music is free. We listened to it on the radio, Napster came along, we downloaded MP3s. It was just, music was always free. And it became a challenge to find a way to monetize it. And that challenge was partially solved with iTunes saying we split up the album and let people download tracks and pay for them and rent them. And that whole thing, it's a challenge. Podcasting, pretty much the same. People expect podcasts to be free, and it's a real hassle to open a Patreon account to donate $5 to somebody so you can support them when, we just thought it should be free. Next one, please. Another thing that's happening in voice is voice search optimization. Now, bear with me as I go a little bit sideways here. We are using our phones on the screen less and less. If you've got children, you may think that's not true. But the reality is we're going to start getting into our car, and ChatGPT is really energizing this process right now. We're going to get into our car, and I'm sorry if this sets your phones off, but we're going to say, hey, Google, find me this information. And we don't want to accept, I found you a website. Would you like me to open the website for you? No, we want you to speak the answer to us. So voice in search is going to be really important. Okay. So how do we fix that? Well, ChatGPT needs to learn. The algorithms need to learn. They have to find this information. So the initial step is that Google and Apple transcribe every podcast they find and add the spoken word into the database of index database, which means we're approaching a point where I can ask a question and the search engine is going to look inside a podcast for what was said and give me back the podcast and say, would you like to hear that thing? So we're going to move away from the screen being the way we interact with spoken word content and a lot of the content on the internet. The next one is voice shopping. Who has more people working on voice? Google, Spotify, or Amazon? Spoiler alert, it's Amazon. What? They don't even make podcasts. No, but they know that people want to shop using voice. So it's going to be important. So these are things that are related to podcasting, related to spoken word, but not necessarily podcasts. And next, please. This hand and screen, I mixed the order up, but moving to that. So where's the opportunity? Next one, please. The opportunity in podcasting lies in perhaps mass market. Can you make a podcast that everybody wants to listen to? Can you be the next big thing? Can you create this audience? So I want to take a moment here to tell you that there are two really, really, really important questions you have to ask at the outset if you want to make a podcast or if you're thinking of making a podcast. Number one, is it a hobby or is it part of a business process? Okay. It's fundamental. It can't be both. Anybody here cycle? Anybody here play music for fun? Those are the kind of things that you You can invest in without an expectation of a return. I'm going to buy nicer running shoes. I'm going to buy a bicycle. Without thinking, I'm buying the bicycle so I can race faster, so I can win a race and earn them. That's a hobby. You invest in it, you spend money, and you enjoy it. If you want to make a podcast for a hobby, start tomorrow, start recording, have fun, and enjoy it. If you stop enjoying it, change to another hobby. If you think a podcast is part of a business process, and by business process, I don't mean it's an advert and you selling. It can be any aspect in the value chain or the sales funnel of a business. Then you need to be strategic and understand some things. Now we move on to the second fundamental thing you have to ask when considering a podcast. Are you selling to your audience or are you selling your audience? Fundamentally different things. So Joe Rogan, biggest podcast in the world. Mac G, biggest podcast in South Africa, possibly Africa. What are they doing? They're selling their audience. They're aggregating people, the biggest audience they can, so they can sell those people to an advertiser. So while they might be making programming for their listener, the listener is not their customer. You behave differently when you know that. Next one, please, is branded content. So branded content is when you're making a podcast or spoken word content to sell to your audience. And it doesn't have to be overt, please buy my product. It can simply be, I want to demonstrate knowledge, experience, expertise so that you trust me and want to do business with me. So let's come up with an example. I am an agent for keynote speakers. I love the keynote address thing, by the way. Good pun. If I'm an agent for keynote speakers, I might start a podcast called Lectern. And the podcast intro might sound like this. Welcome to Lectern, the podcast for people who book keynote speakers, where I speak to keynote speakers about how they match a topic with a company's business objectives so that you book the right keynote speaker for your next address, for your next event, for your next function. That podcast is never going to have a big audience. But I'm not trying to build an audience because I'm not selling the audience. I'm trying to build a very, very focused niche audience who will trust me for this expertise and book my keynote speakers. Very, very different fundamentally. And then the third kind of crossed into the two, the branded podcast and the niche content. So the branded podcast is when you're creating content around a brand, be it Easy Equities or Old Mutual, any of the brands. You're creating additional content for your potential customer to consume. Not so that they buy the product directly necessarily, but that they know more and can do research about your organization and your content. Next, please. Who's winning in this space? In the music mass market space, Tay is winning. $90 million last year. What percentage came from music and what percentage came from performances and merchandise? Don't know the numbers exactly, but the majority of the revenue in this space is not just straight from the music. So building a podcast where you think the revenue is going to be all from the performance and people paying you to listen, it's a tough ask. And I would think it's a very, very small percentage of the audience who can succeed in that space. So don't presume that you're going to be one of them. Don't let it kill your dreams, but don't get up in the morning and think, well, everybody who starts a podcast is going to build an audience of 1 million people. Next, please. In the branded podcast space, these people are killing it. Anybody here got an Easy Equities account? Okay, a few people. The one thing that Easy Equities knows very well is their market segmentation, their customer segmentation. When you opened an account, but I haven't put money in. I've put money in, but I haven't bought a share. I've bought a share, but I haven't bought a second share. I've bought 2 shares, but I haven't sold any shares. I've bought shares, but I haven't got an RA. I've got an RA, but I don't have a US dollar account. They've got all these configurations where they know where their audience, their customers sit in their journey. So they make podcasts aimed at moving you from one category to the next. That's it. That's it. They've understood that a person who's put money in their account and hasn't bought a share yet has got some fear, some lack of knowledge. There's something missing there. So they create podcasts and mail it to the people who've got money in their account and haven't bought a share to help build trust about the next step. I don't know the numbers, but it's hundreds of millions of rands of conversions that they've done through a podcast that cost thousands to make. So you heard earlier about the value of an audience. There's value in MacG having 1 million downloads, but there's value in getting an Easy Equities podcast in front of somebody who's about to buy 1 million rands worth of shares. And then who's winning in the niche space? Perhaps you. One more for me, but you've got to put in the work. It's not going to just happen for you. Frequently asked questions. If we can go to the first one. Primary income or side hustle? This is a difficult question for anybody. Whether you work for a company and you start making pottery, if you've started your own side hustle, it's a really difficult thing on understanding when to jump ship from your bread and butter to get into your side hustle. I can tell you what I've done. I'm sure people here can tell you what they've done, but there's no golden rule on the right way to do it. It's risky, it's dangerous. You give up security in exchange for your own domain and controlling your own destiny. Comes with risk. But staying in something without following that urge also comes with the risk that you may, destroy your soul and feel dead and empty. A little bit dramatic, but yeah. So there's no final answer on whether it should be your primary or a side hustle. That's as difficult a choice for podcasting as it is for any business that you might be in. The hobby or a business, we touched on that. The equipment you would use speaks to which of those it is. You can just go back one, sorry. The equipment you would use would differ depending on which of those you're investing your time and money in. Content trumps the quality of the podcast. But if I'm scheduling an interview with somebody, the quality of the conversation should be good. We're going to move into a sphere now where all the boats rise with the tide. We expect the quality to be good. We don't want a bad microphone or background noise to detract from the quality of the conversation. We want to enjoy the conversation and not notice the technology. So yes, you can start a podcast with a cell phone, log into Anchor and put your podcast out. But if you're going to be doing this as part of a business plan, then there needs to be curation, planning, preparation, and you would invest more. So in terms of barrier to entry from a technical point of view, you've got a cell phone and an internet connection, free Anchor account, you can get up there and make your podcast. That might be suitable for a hobbyist, for a business a little bit more challenging, but the barriers to entry are very, very low in this space. Next one, please. Fundamental, really, really most important question you can ask, because it changes what content you make and how you make it when you understand which of those two things you're doing. As much as Podcast and Chill does great numbers, they also have great challenges going out there and convincing brands to give them money for advertising. It doesn't sound right, does it? But why do they have challenges? It's a hard thing to sell an audience. It's a hard thing to sell an audience to an independent. In the Will and Grace example, it was easy to buy an advert there because you gave it to a network and they managed it. And if somebody did something wrong, somebody could fire you. But once you're in an independent space, you are your own network. You have to motivate to an advertiser on your own start from zero basis on why they should invest with you. So it's really, really challenging. Working for selling a product, building a podcast around your hobby. We had a picture of a koi fish there. If your hobby was breeding koi fish and you built a podcast around how to breed koi fish with a star on the side of them, very, very niched, but you can build a loyal following within that space of people who support you and support everything you do, including asking you to come to the koi conference and speak, including buying food from you, including asking you to come and build the koi pond at the new hotel. Those are the kind of things that are your real business case downstream of the content you're creating. It's not the same as every Tuesday at 9 o'clock, my episode drops. Listen, I want lots of listeners so I can sell Johnny Walker adverts. It's not that. It's building a tribe, small, loyal, faithful, who support you in your business. Fundamentally, it's one of those two things. And are you asking advertisers to start spending or shift spending? Getting people to spend money they've never spent before, really, really, really hard. Asking people to move the money that they are currently spending into something where you're offering more value, you've got a better chance. So whoever makes fish food for koi's is already advertising some way. If I build a podcast on koi breeding, I can go to them and say, your money is better spent with me because I have the koi breeders listening to my podcast. And I understood that there would be an Ask Me Anything part now. Are we doing that, or are we aggregating them until the end? I'm very happy to take some questions now. Cool. Thank you for your time, and love to have some questions.
Maybe we can start with you again.
Greetings once again. Tunes RSA, Mr. International Kipiza. I just wanted to ask, do you think we'd ever see radio stations like featuring podcasts? Because sometimes you'd find maybe a Tibo Touch is out of the country, but his show is still going on, and he's probably, let's just say, a fan of MacG. Do you ever think he'd be like, I would want to license this episode so I could play it on my station?
Yeah, we're already doing it. We've been doing it for a few years already. And I think where we're going to see the most growth in this space is community radio. Community radio has kind of had a lost identity. People have been pretending to be community radio stations for a long time so they could get licenses and behave like commercial. I think we're going to see an explosion in people queuing up at stations to say, please, can I be on air? And the process to be on air is going to be go to the newsroom, get your microphone and recorder, go out in the field, record some stuff, make a podcast, bring it in. We'll see which podcasts get the most traction, and the person who gets the most traction will come on air with a show. I think that's one of the paths we're going to go down. In terms of making content that's licensed, it's an absolute model we're already seeing. Instead of going into a studio and making a 30-minute show, make a 30-minute podcast and license it to radio stations all over the place. Absolutely.
I actually have a question for you because I also recently just got into podcasting. I have season 1, and now I'm launching the season 2 of my podcast March 7th. So my question is kind of related to what he asked. In terms of being able to license or sync or produce your podcast for radio, how do you feel is the best way forward? Because I've been thinking of ways to try commercialize it, because it's my own investment. I'm spending into it, and even judging from your presentation, you were like, it can't be a hobby and a business at the same time. You have to pick one struggle. And my struggle at the moment is, trying to commercialize this. Like, I've spent this amount of money producing this content. Where would I ever get anything back, even if it's R1 or $1? So how best would you advise? Do you think it would be better to maybe produce a podcast season and try pitch it to a radio? Because when you already pitch something that's out there, like, that's already out, it's not new content to us. Or sometimes you come with them, they're like, we want 20 episodes done, and you don't have the capacity to do that. I think you get the question.
Yep. So you've already answered the first question. You've chosen that this is not a hobby. This is part of a business plan. You might not be clear on the business plan, but that's there. Are you trying to sell your audience or sell to your audience currently?
I am at the moment, how I want to grow with it, I'm trying to sell to my audience, not to sell the audience. And hopefully later on, after I've garnered a followership, I'm able to use the audience to now sell to them or meet potential collaborators who would like to sponsor for the audience.
So now the tricky bit is to identify not just a niche, but a very, very, very narrow niche, so you can own it. So the example I gave of a keynote business, let me tell you the intro to that podcast again. Welcome to Lectern, the podcast for people who book keynote speakers. That's who I want to listen to this podcast. And in this podcast, we talk script writers and keynote speakers about how they match a topic with a business's objectives so that you can book the right keynote speaker for your event. Within 15 seconds of listening to that intro, nearly everybody in the room is not listening to your podcast. Perfect. We're not pretending to be something that you're going to love for entertainment. This podcast is aimed at those people, help them hire the people I represent to come speak at their event. That's it. If I have 5 listeners and I get a booking a month, I'm in business. That's a business model. You don't need the vanity metrics for a business that's very, very focused. Also, those people are only going to listen once or twice a year when it's time to book a speaker for their year-end event or their Christmas, the July event. So it's not like, oh, my numbers aren't growing. I don't need them to grow. I need the 50 people who listen to listen twice a year and book my people. So identify your niche. There's a temptation to go wide. Oh, I need to appeal to more people. I need more downloads. Yes, if you're trying to sell the people. But if you're trying to sell to the people, tell them what your offering is so they can decide whether to buy it from you.
Thank you. That's, well, I've learned so much, right? Thanks. We have another question here.
Hi, my name is Doza Mlaba. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm also just planning to start a podcast. Well, I have ideas of starting a podcast, but merging it with film, making it as a sketch, sort of. I'm just curious, is it not possible to do both? So to sell your audience and sell to your audience is not possible to do both.
I can't think of anybody who does that successfully. If I'm building a large, wealthy audience, if I'm building an audience of people who love Lamborghinis, and we're talking about how Lamborghinis are designed and how the engine is tuned and Lamborghini, if I'm talking about that, and I've got a follow of people who own and want and aspire to be Lamborghini drivers, why would I let KFC sell an advert to those people? Why would I let anybody near my audience if they're that valuable? That's the challenge. The opportunity for you in the filmmaking space, awesome. Companion podcasts are huge. You can make a 10-part series that interacts between video and audio. Episode 1, video, Seven Dolan, meet the characters, see the buildings, see the restaurants. Episode 2, 3, and 4, podcasts, where you're listening to them. Episode 5, we back down the streets of Melville. 6, 7, and 8, audio. If I'm going to do Star Wars on a low budget, I'm going to blow up the Death Star during a podcast because I need one sound effect and it's blown up. I don't need graphics. So you can create a hybrid series where you intermixing the video and the audio is your series. I'll take a bet with you. I don't know if we'll ever get a chance to honor the bet. But if you did this, I would bet money that 6 months after your series, if you spoke to somebody, they wouldn't be able to tell you what they saw and what they heard. In their heads, they would go, I remember seeing them have that conversation in the restaurant when it was a podcast episode. I think that's going to happen.
Okay. I've got a question for high schools. What is your advice for kids that are in high school right now that are trying to create podcasts about life in their high schools and that are trying to curate an audience of classmates and age mates that are currently in high school? I'll listen on the live stream.
Thank you. There's two, I'm going to give you 2 parts to the answer. Part 1 is come back to, are you trying to sell an audience or sell to your audience? And sell doesn't have to mean monetary initially. It could just mean gain influence or get them to join your journey or your crusade. So you want to build a podcast at school and you want to get your classmates to listen. Why do you want to do that? Do you want to do that so you feel important and you become an influencer and people give you money to influence those people? Or do you want to do it because you firmly, honestly, truly want to change the world and you have something to say and you want them to be part of your journey in saying it? You have to answer that. Otherwise, you're going to behave like a schizophrenic. You're going to do different things. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to change the world, but only 3 people are listening. Yeah, but are those 3 people helping you change the world? Or did you think Coca-Cola was going to give you money to talk to those 3 people while you change the world? You're going to behave differently. MacG needs to be controversial and he needs to be spoken about and he needs the media to boost his stuff so he can keep 1 million people downloading his stuff. That's not the same as me telling you, if you want to breed koi fish with a star on the side, your water must be X temperature. I'm not going to build a huge audience that way. But people who breed fish are going to go, oh, thank goodness for that information. It's hugely valuable. I'm part of your tribe. The second part is understanding where luck plays. At the beginning, I told you we're going to talk about luck. It's important to remember that there are 4 types of luck. A person isn't just lucky or unlucky. The first kind of luck is fate, blind luck. You have no control over it. Nothing you do changes that. The second one is the luck of hustling or motion. If you sit still, you are less lucky than if you're moving. The third one is uniqueness, the luck of uniqueness. Very important for the people in this room today. If you're in the creative space, you may be born with something that nobody else has. You're lucky. Maybe you can leverage it and turn it into money. And the fourth, and perhaps the most important one, is the luck of work. The harder you work, the luckier you get. I wish I'd said that first, but it's the fourth form of luck. That's the one you have the most control over. Work hard and what you're doing, you'll get luckier. So those 2 things, if you're at school and thinking of starting a podcast, are you trying to start it because you want to be the most popular kid in school? You want to be the local school influencer? Or because you really sincerely are the person who's starting this club to change something? And then put in the work.
On that note, I just wanted to promote like my 5 top podcasts in South Africa. It has to be it has to be the Virtual Mkuku by DJ Spoo. It has to be the Penwell Show by Penwell. It's the Hustlers Corner. I was also marketing and directing 2 podcasts. It's the Illegal Podcast by Newo and also Dread Avenue. So please just check those podcasts out.
Are they all selling their audiences, those podcasts?
I think, yeah, the Dread Avenue and Illegal Podcast, I know that they're selling their audiences, but then I forgot one more. The 348 Select, it's by Lwazima Donsela. He's selling to his I think audience, and it's mainly about sneaker exchange, like sneakers, and he's informing people about sneakers, but it's just become more than that. He's actually informing people about how to get these brand deals and how to like formalize your business, because he's interviewing people who aren't in the forefront and who aren't famous but are really making the money from the industry. So I think that's one podcast you really need to check out. It's 348 Select by Lwazima Donsela.
Thanks. So just bear that in mind whenever you're thinking about a podcast. Are you selling the audience or selling to the audience? Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm actually going to ask you, I know, Gerald, we're going to want to take some pictures outside with the GCRA representatives and all the other speakers. So we'll take a picture outside at the banner. Thank you so much for your very valuable presentation and lessons on podcasting. I think we're going to take a break, right, Peter? We will take a break. Remember, this is SIA Africa Conference Academy. We're here the whole day. We will continue to have conversations about how to invest in business and how to turn your talent into a business. For now, we'll take a break and I will ask all the speakers and partners and sponsors, any of the collaborators of SIA Africa, anyone from Gauteng Tourism, let's meet outside and take some pictures by the banner. Yes, including the learners, please. So yeah, thank you guys. See you in a bit.